Okay, all right. Hello and welcome. I'm your host, William Liu. This is the Reaction Podcast on the Hello and Welcome Podcast presented by Betway. You can hit the QR code below for all of your sports betting needs. Also, a huge thank you once again to Kevin here at Virage Sonore for hosting us. Find their studios here in Montreal at 79 Rachel. It is honestly excellent studio, very well equipped, and Kevin is a huge Raptor fan, so, if that's a bonus, that should be a bonus. This is an episode for huge Raptor fans. This is a sicko episode because we are live after the Raptors open practice from McGill University. So the Raptors, obviously, you won't see them take preseason action until Sunday when they actually play here in Montreal at, I believe, the Bell Center against the Washington Wizards. But the Raptors do this every time in training camp, which is always really fun, which is to have an open practice. So you get to see like the teams sorted into two groups and go through a variety of drills and ultimately play against each other. It's pretty much the only time you actually get to see an open practice, even for media. I think there's like some very rare occasions where you get to see a little bit more, but typically speaking, this is the first time you get to see Raptor versus Raptor. And so if that's something you're interested in, if you can't wait until Sunday to see what the Raptors look like this season, here is the report. So first off, two teams for the Raptors. There was Team Black, coached by Pat Delaney. That was RJ Barrett, Jonathan Mogbo, Grady Dick, Jakob Poeltl, and Davion Mitchell in the starting five, with Brandon Carlson, Jamias Ramsey, and Ulrich Chomche coming off the bench. In the other team, in gray, that was head coach Jama Mahalela. For that one, Ochai Agbaji, DJ Carton, Chris Boucher, Kelly Olynyk, and Jared Roden, and with Bruno Fernando, Jameson Battle, and I think that was it coming off the bench, honestly. There's a lot of guys who didn't really take the court. I mean, guys who were announced as out before the game. Scotty Barnes remains away from the team due to a personal reason, although I'm led to believe that that's a happy occasion, not a bad one. Bruce Brown, it remains out. He's recovering from the knee surgery. Emmanuel Quickly, he was out, which is, to me, is a little bit of a red flag. I would love to see if he would be able to play at some point. I don't know if he's going to play on Sunday. He's been wearing this brace on his right hand. I've been told that it's like a right thumb sprain. But yeah, I mean, he's been around, I guess. I don't know. I mean, he's still doing, like, he did warm-ups and stuff like that. But if they want to be safe with it, I wouldn't be too surprised, I suppose, if he didn't play on Sunday. Garrett Temple, DMP, because, he's look, man, Garrett Temple's been through like 20 training camps. I don't think he needs this. And then Jacoby Walter is was out with the shoulder. His continues to have his shoulder in a sling. Although I'm told that it's, again, not going to take too much longer. But nevertheless, those guys were out. The one guy who didn't play, even though he wasn't listed as out, was Jamal Shed. I wasn't totally sure about that. Maybe they just wanted to get a look at other point guards, or maybe there's something deeper there. But regardless, there wasn't an answer on that front. And, so Team Black versus Team Gray. I think the bigger picture things for me were just like, well, first off, they didn't even play a full game, right? It's like 10-minute halves and then 5 minutes of an end-of-game scenario where essentially simulate as like, I think they put 90-90 on the clock, and for 5 minutes, can you play under pressure? Essentially a crunch time drill. So basically 25 minutes. For people who are true sickos who really wanted to get a box score, trust me, I'm one of those people, and I asked no less than 5 people about it, and unfortunately, the answer I got was there was some people in the Raptors were taking notes on, I guess, the box score, and also there was a scorekeeper. They compared it afterwards, and it wasn't particularly accurate, so I don't know. Regardless, there's no box score. I tried my best, but there is no box score for this, so you're just going to have to go off of the takeaways that I'm going to deliver here for you. And also for people looking for footage outside of like some Twitter footage, I don't think you'll see much of it. Again, like, you could just wait till Sunday really to watch the preseason games, but nevertheless, I was here, and here are some takeaways. So number one, I'm going to go through some of the good takeaways. I think number one, on a team-wide level, I think the Raptors did a really good job of applying more pressure defensively. That's something that you've seen Darko talk about quite a bit. even going back to training camp, even going back to summer league. And for the team, I think they came out and delivered. You might also say maybe the intensity, and there's a bit of sloppiness maybe to start the practice regardless, but a lot of ball pressure. Even starting with like the drills that they actually worked on to sort of like just warm up and prepare. Outside of just like running up and down and stretching and, layups and stuff like that, like the one like actual drill they actually practiced was having, guys close out and pressure the ball in sort of like, short spurts. And so you could clearly tell that this is a big emphasis for them this season. Something that Darko talked about, most important guy, the MIG. Actually, I might hand out a MIG for this one, actually. So, stay tuned for that one. But he's talked about the most important guy is the guy guarding the ball. And we saw a lot of ball pressure from his team sort of across the board. So I like that. Again, I don't know if that's going to translate necessarily to, immediate results. We saw, obviously, last year the Raptors were one of the worst defensive teams in the league. It was, something I pointed out quite a bit, obviously, last season on the Raptors show, and something that hopefully I won't be pointing out as much here at Hello and Welcome. But still, that's been the point of emphasis, and at least on that front, you're seeing more of it. Of course, you still have guys like rotating over at the basket. You still have your centers sort of doing their thing. But ultimately speaking, like that is, hopefully at least the defense, if it picks up at least at the point of attack, should help quite a bit. Again, you didn't have multiple starters available in this one, so you can't evaluate everything. But I did think the ball pressure was a lot better than last season. So that's my first takeaway. The second takeaway was Gradey was shooting really well from three. By my count, he had at least 4. And, some obviously off of set action, some off of catch and shoot, things like that, some off of movement. But I think in general, Gradey played pretty well, was aggressive looking for his shot, was aggressive looking for his offense. There were obviously some moments again where you would like to see maybe better defensively. I know there's one moment, for example, where Ochai had back cut him for a layup, and after that ensuing timeout, Darko, who obviously is the head coach of the whole program, but he actually pulled Gradey aside and sort of showcased to him sort of like how not to get back cut, because I think it might be 2 plays in a row where Gradey got back cut, so things like that. But then again, he also took a charge, so it wasn't all bad. But ultimately, yeah, offensively, getting the threes to drop. I mean, it's been really fun. Again, after practices, this whole week of training camp has been practices, and when reporters get let in, obviously all the set instructions are all done, but guys do extra stuff, and it's been a lot of RJ and Grady having 3-point shooting battles after games, and obviously Grady's winning those for the most part. But he's just shooting at a really, really good rate. I gotta say, RJ's also shooting at a pretty good rate. That's another one of my good takeaways from this one, was just watching RJ, and his 3-point shooting is something that Kelly Olynyk talked about on media day. I asked him about sort of what he's seen from RJ and his growth. In terms of guys who have seen a lot of RJ, I mean, the captain of Team Canada is certainly going to see a ton of RJ. But one thing he pointed out, in addition to the other things that he's doing well, but was just that this is probably the best that he's seen RJ shoot the ball. And yeah, I mean, that's what I'm seeing. Again, like even the shooting battles after practice, him and Grady are actually quite close in a lot of these. It's pretty competitive. So it was nice to see him extend that confidence into this game. He took a couple of transition pull-ups as well, which is probably like the ultimate sign of being confident in your 3. But of course, you see the other stuff from RJ getting to the basket. Because I think both Scotty and Emmanuel were out for this game, you had to have other guys sort of step up as sort of playmakers. And on Team Black, it was mostly RJ who was sort of leading the charge offensively, aside from obviously your point guards. I mean, I think he had Davey on his team, but like RJ initiated a lot of the offense for his side. On the other side, it was a lot of Kelly initiating offense as sort of like a de facto center. But like, yeah, for RJ, I thought he just played really well. I think he was aggressive. I think he made the right kickouts. And I don't have a box score to really tell you sort of like objectively what the production was, but ultimately I thought he did a really good job. And yeah, I mean, it's going to be a lot expected of RJ this season. I think Grady, I think Darko's talked about sort of how much he wants to see, the defense improve from RJ in addition to other players. But obviously RJ is going to be a super huge part of this season. He looked fit to me. He looked great. He looked sharp. And again, the 3 has been dropping at a really good rate. So pretty solid. And then, I think for me, like, it just the Raptors do have a couple of point guards that they, are trying out here. Again, no Jamal Shed, which would have been great to see Jamal be able to play. I don't think there's an injury or anything there. I just think that, like, maybe it just wasn't his turn. I don't know. But they had on one end they had DJ Carton, on the other end they had Davion Mitchell, and I thought, Davion's defense has been great, especially watching it close up. The McGill gym, quite small, like kind of high school gym, basically, when you really think about it. Like, I think it probably seats like maybe 500 people. Like, it's maybe 1,000 at most, but 500 probably. So you're like quite close to the court, and I'm watching it, and there's one possession where I see Davion like trying to guard. I forget, maybe like Jared Roden, like one of the other point guards, but like he was just like talking at him, like face to face talking at him the whole time, and obviously was staying with him stride for stride. So I like sort of seeing the attitude a little bit from Davion too. Obviously, that's the thing that he's been carrying is his defensive reputation. But also at the same time, I thought DJ Carton did well for himself. I mean, he's on the two-way. He joined the Raptors last season. Unfortunately, got hurt right away. He got an ankle injury. That took him a while to come back from. He was able to make it for Summer League, which is good. I thought he was, pretty good in Summer League. And then, yeah, you're seeing sort of him continue to battle, I guess, on a two-way. But I thought Carton did well for himself. He has a bit of a three. Got lucky, banked one in. But I just think that there's definitely an athleticism there. Like, in terms of just trying to, it's also open practice, it's kind of fan service anyway, but like in terms of guys with like very easy balance, in terms of guys who are the best dunkers on the team, I feel like he's close to one of those guys because he, very, very effortlessly was able to put it between his legs and throw down a dunk. So there's the athleticism portion, but I also think that like he's trying to like improve and showcase more of his defensive abilities on that front too. So, I know that's something that he wanted to do in Summer League, but I just thought like they played largely to a standstill, which if you want to interpret that as like Davion should be a step above, you can. I would also say that the caveat here is that this is all in open practice, so it's also just a one-off. But ultimately, yeah, I just for me, DJ Carton actually looked pretty dynamic with the ball, and did some good things. Offensively, of course, the best players offensively in this game for me were RJ on his team, and then Kelly on his team. Kelly, it's very funny watching Kelly because like, I mean, again, like, he's been through a million training camps as well, but he just comes in and he's knocking down threes, no problem. He's handling the ball, making good decisions with it. He's also, even in open practice, getting guys to bite on his pump fake and jumping into guys for fouls, which, like, as far as foul baiting in practice, like, that's nasty work. But it takes a lot of, like, IQ, I guess, to play the way that Kelly does. So, I thought he was quite productive. And yeah, like, just in general, I thought the whole team shot the ball well on both ends. I think guys were just doing a good job on that front. And then the last good takeaway I will go to, because I really don't have that many bad ones, but I thought Ochai, for me, actually did a really good job. I wish I had the box score for this one, but by my count, I think he scored 4 buckets, and I think 3 of them were by cuts. I thought by the time the second half rolled around, they actually started using Ochai as the screener on the ball for Kelly. So inverted pick and roll, typically, obviously, you would have the smaller player handling the ball and the big coming to screen. But since they ran so much offense through Kelly, they actually used Ochai to come screen. And I do think it was interesting. Whoever comes to screen is like a very, there's a lot of factors that go into that. It might just be that like whoever's guarding the screener, in this case, who's guarding Ochai, that's who they want to involve defensively. That's who they want to attack. There's that portion. But there's also the portion of like, I think using Ochai as a screener, I think, frees him up to sort of like use his athleticism. Because I think for me, that's number one, that's the best tool that he has on the offensive end. He is quite athletic. If you watch, for example, I mean, this is going back 3 years now, but if you go back to this Kansas highlight tapes, like this guy used to always go for baseline cuts into like huge alley-oop dunks. So I think that like they're probably trying to leverage his athleticism a little bit more. That's something they talked about in Summer League as well, sort of getting him comfortable playing off ball. And a lot of that obviously involves cutting and screening and moving and stuff like that, and spacing, of course. But yeah, Ochai just did a really good job, and like the fact that like he was able to find the spaces, time his cuts well. I think him and Kelly play really well off each other. That's something that was the case in Utah as well. Was the case when they came over to the Raptors, and so yeah, I mean, look, I'm not gonna make lineup decisions to try to maximize what Ochai does offensively, but at the same time, we know that Kelly and Ochai have a really good chemistry, and I think that the more that they can play together, I think that makes a stronger case for Ochai to play off the bench rather than sort of like potentially maybe being in the starting 5. But yeah, I thought Ochai did really well. Super fit as well. I mean, no problems going up and down the court. And he also had the hardest job in terms of having to guard probably the best player in the gym, which was RJ. And I thought he did a decent job like standing up to RJ's physicality. on many occasions, although RJ did get the best of him a few times too. So just Ochai, I think, look, there's not been a lot of hype for him. I think Summer League-wise, he was certainly pretty disappointing. But I do know that Masai is a huge fan of Ochai. You know, he's backed him many times. He's obviously made the decision to trade for him too. And, yeah, I mean, I don't think that he should be an overlooked piece in this. I do think that he's going to be, especially with Bruce Brown out for the first couple of weeks here as he recovers from knee surgery, that, like, yeah, you're going to see quite a bit of Ochai, and it's a good, you know, runway for him to sort of rediscover his career, or not even rediscover, but just, like, tweak and find a good role for himself. And, yeah, because I know the defense plays for sure. It's just the offense. They got to find something for him to do. So, yeah, I mean, he was solid. I think he had a mid-range shot as well. I think, look, on the there's no real bad takeaways. I think just it's some of the more notable things because I'm excited to see the rookies, right? And, you know, Carlson basically was pick and pop for three. You know, basically imagine like Mike Muscala, like it's kind of like that. There's not too much else to say about that. You didn't see Jacoby Walter because his shoulder's injured, and so he didn't play. And then Shed, for some reason, Jamal Shed just didn't play. So the only other two rookies were Jonathan Mogbo and Ulrich Chomche. I think for me, Mogbo was very interesting because I know tweeners are much more popular these days, but like I think that for him, the tween skills aren't necessarily popping the same way as they did in college. Now, his college career, for people who weren't familiar, I think he went through like 4 or 5 different programs. And he really popped off last season playing in San Francisco. He was playing sort of like a small ball, big role, but he would also post up. He would also use his athleticism to roll. He would also like handle the ball a little bit, just do a little bit of everything. But basically, if he had to peg one thing for him, it was kind of like that small ball center role. And I don't think he's really been billed as a center. I mean, first off, he's just not that big. Like if him and RJ stood side by side, he's a little bit taller than RJ, but he's not like stronger than RJ, for example. So like it's not like necessarily he has the build to play center, but I think the skill set for him like plays much better when he is sort of playing as a small ball 5, where he can attack bigger players and things like that. Because I think number one, he has a bit of a handle. Like he could bring the ball up past half. It's not like crossover, you know, snake a pick and roll. Like, you know, like he's not a point guard, but ultimately, you know, he can, you know, push the pace, increase sort of that. He's got a bit of a pass in him as well, although we didn't see it as much today. And you know, it'll be interesting because I think the more that they start him off as a wing, the more he's going to struggle. Because, like, number one, his skill as a wing, especially if he's not going to break guys down off the dribble, and if he's not going to be, you know, this huge, like, slasher or anything like that, is that he needs to be able to space and catch you for 3. And to me, it's something I'm certainly been watching out for. He, in his college profile, he wasn't a 3-point shooter. I think he took 1 3 maybe in like 3 seasons or something like that. The draft was a while ago, but basically he wasn't a shooter. And they're trying to build that into him. And you saw that here today, like first half, he got a catch and shoot wide open, you know, guys drive, kick out to him in the corner, has all the time in the world, and he airballed it like by a significant margin, airball. And then kind of the same deal in the second half where same play, sort of guys, you know, swung it over to him in the corner, open, and he airballed that one as well. After the second airball, the play, I think the ball rotated out to him on the perimeter. He had a good chance to shoot the 3, but he turned it down and instead sort of swung it back out. So I think for me, it was like, you know, you try the first 2 pretty easily, you know, in terms of like at least out of all the 3s you can really have, catch and shoot wide open in the corner is probably the easiest. And you know, he wasn't able to knock those down, so he turned the next one down. But what was strange to me was like when they did their 5-minute tied drill where they're like 90 on the clock, 5 minutes left, let's try to sort of like execute, go down the stretch. It got to the point where it was like the other team was up by 4, so Jonathan's team was down 4, and there was like 30 seconds left, and he took a rushed corner 3, which was semi-contested, and he got rimmed this time, which is nice, but like ultimately that's a terrible shot in that moment in terms of just like time and score. Again, this is all practice, so you know what I mean. But like, and I'm happy that he's practicing 3s, but like it just, for me, like that's going to be an area where it's a real concern, because if he doesn't have the 3, then like where's he going to play? They're not really playing him as a center. To be fair, he's not strong enough to play as a center right now. And the other skills for me are not necessarily all like undeniable. Like he's got good athleticism, he got good length, you know, he got a couple steals, something like that was all good, got some deflections, can push the ball just a little bit, but like in the in-between, what's that one thing, you know? And I think even to draw a comparison to like what Pascal was when he was a rookie, you know, Pascal being the 27th pick, Mogbo being like the 31st pick, so like even like roughly in the same range, What Pascal did as a rookie to really stand out was just like, he's like, all right, man, maybe I don't get a chance to showcase any other skills, but what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna leak out in transition and I'm gonna get like 2-3 layups that way. Of course, it helped to have Kyle, play as in that role, but like I want to know what is that one thing that gets Mogbo on the floor to start, and then sort of allow him the gratitude and the grace to sort of grow the rest of his game. But right now, I'm not totally seeing it, and the 3-point shooting is a concern for me, especially they want to play him on the wing. I think number two thing, Chomche was he was all right. Like there were some like moments of Actually, I think he was mostly fine, to be honest. Like I know for Chomche the shooting is sort of like more theoretical right now. Like he's just, I don't know. I've seen him maybe shoot like 50 jumpers now in just warm-ups in total, and like I would be surprised if he made 10 of them. You know what I mean? Like, so I don't think that that's a big portion of his game right now, but I think that what's undeniable is he runs really hard. He's got decent hands. He's not like a guy with bad hands, right? He's not one of those kind of bigs. He's got decent hands. He runs hard. He's very fluid. He's strong. He's really strong for a guy who, like, he's the youngest guy, I think, in this entire draft. And I think physically he's there with anybody pretty much on the team in terms of just, like, his like, physique. He's good. Yeah, I mean, I think there's like awareness things that like they're gonna have to sort of really point out for him. I think that Jakob tried to throw a couple lobs to him. I think that was kind of cute. But yeah, I think for me it's just like the Chomche play hard, because my expectation is quite lower for Chomche as compared to a guy like Mogbo, for example. Not only because Mogbo was taken 31st and Chomche was 57th, but also like Chomche is 18 years old and he's new to basketball, and Mogbo is 22. And has been, sort of in the developmental pipeline for longer than a guy like Chomche. So, regardless, though, I think, Chomche, played hard. I liked, he was fighting for a rebound so hard he kind of ended up elbowing Chris Boucher, which, whatever. But still, I liked that he fought for that. He had a nice outside block. I think, of course, these guys are all projects to varying degrees, and I think that probably Chomche is the longest shot. But still, there is something there with him, and it is nice to sort of like see what he's got once in a while. It's going to make me want to tap into 905 this season. It's going to make me want to tap into, I guess, whenever minutes he plays for the Raptors too, just to see how he grows. Because I think that like the base is there. It is there. The only other thing I didn't necessarily like was just like, I don't know, seeing guys like actually bang into each other and stuff. Like DJ Carden like ran into another guy. I don't know if like he's okay. Hopefully he's okay, but like they kind of stayed down for a little bit. Chris getting elbowed in the face by Chomche, like I mentioned. Jakob came to the podium afterwards, and I asked him about having a black eye. He was just, I asked him like, hey, what happened there with your black eye? He's like, I got a black eye, and I'm like, is there a story behind it? And he's like, no, just a black eye. I'm like, okay, cool. So mysterious black eye, but like still like, just I guess seeing guys sort of banged up. We've already got 5 guys who are out. Obviously Scotty's healthy. He's just away for personal reasons. Maybe he makes it on Sunday. Maybe he doesn't. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, still like you quickly with the thumb, and Bruce with surgery, Jacoby in a sling. You know what I mean? Like I just don't want it to add up already. Like it's literally the season hasn't even started yet. But yeah, overall it was fun, and I think it's nice. I think fan service maybe in general. I think that it gave the McGill students a pretty decent experience. I like that it's fairly affordable, $25 to go see the Raptors practice. I know it's not a real game. I know it's not in the real facilities even, but like still, I mean, when can you get to see the Raptors play for $25? Like that's to me like an option like that should still exist even for the Scotiabank Arena. And I know that like the economics are obviously going to dictate that supply and demand are going to be higher than $25 where the two lines meet. But like still like I some level of access where like my brother who's a big fan who's just like, I want to go to a game. It's like, yeah, cool. Here's $25. Go watch the practice. Like that option should exist, especially for younger people, to be able to sort of like just engage with the Raptors. I think in terms of just the community service aspect, it was cool to see the Raptor come out, do the little inflatable Raptor thing, do the one-handed push-ups, all that kind of stuff. Even just like throwing T-shirts at the end, like the players and doing that. Like I think it's just good to show appreciation. I know that obviously a lot of this is fan service. Like this whole thing is a fan service. It's like a glorified practice that we get to see, but still, it was a fun time. So I've always enjoyed the open practices. I know the Raptors are going to move around. It's part of their thing in terms of just representing for all of Canada is that they move their training camp from place to place, city to city each year. So, but if they happen to be coming to your city, or if you happen to be in the same city as the training camp, try to make sure to go out to the open practices because it's always a really good time. I remember, even being in Quebec City last time, and it was packed and the atmosphere was great. So just to wrap up, before I hand out the 3 stars and the most improved, I did get a couple of questions on Twitter from people who, again, weren't even there. But just going to answer those really quickly so that we can race through those. And Jerome and my brother and Kevin in the studio can all just like go out and have their Friday nights in Montreal, which is a very valuable commodity, I have to say. So Dan, first question says, since you guys are in Montreal, I want to find out what's going on with your dude Chris Boucher. What will Chris's role be on the team this year? There's a bit of a discussion with that. Again, I asked Darko about it at practice 3 days ago, so you can actually listen for his answer. I don't think he promised anything, but he did say that there's a chance for him to get back into the rotation, which I think that that's all you can really ask for. I think that Chris doesn't fit sort of what Darko would like his bigs to do offensively. You want them to be playmakers. So you see Kelly, for example, playmaking and doing a lot of ball handling. Even Jakob, I think, does a really good job of like having the ball and feeling comfortable with it. Chris plays more of a wing for this team. But at the same time, it doesn't mean he can't play as an effective wing. Number one, if you're going to be an effective wing, you got to be a good 3-point shooter. And Chris has been knocking down threes. I mean, I think he had 2 threes in this one today, including like a pull-up 3. So I think, Chris has that portion. And then I think the rest of it is just like, can you be disciplined defensively? And I think that Darko's challenging him to be better on that end too. And I know, like, it's a rebuilding team, and he's 31 years old, and the team's already tried to trade him, right? So, like, it's not exactly like this is like a slam dunk kind of thing. But I do think, even behind the scenes, there's a maturation with Chris, right? Which I won't reveal why, but I do think that there's a real maturation in Chris as a person, which I think is really cool. And also at the same time, I think him and Darko have had some good conversations about getting on the same page. Maybe last year they maybe weren't on the same page, and it's not like a beef or anything. It's just like, I just don't think that, like, again, he wasn't doing what Darko wanted from him, and so, whatever, it just wasn't working out. They weren't seeing eye to eye, but like, I do think that they're better aligned this year, and I do think that, especially with some injuries to start the season, depending on how they want to go, like, look, if you want to win games to start the season, you should play Chris over a guy like Mogbo. There's not even close. Like, he's much better than him right now. But it just depends on sort of what directions the Raptors want to prioritize. But yeah, I mean, Chris is cool, man. I've actually really enjoyed, like, I know a lot of this, like, me and Chris backstory, if you followed, is that, like, he took exception to a couple of things I said on Twitter, and then, but we've hashed it out since then. We've done a whole live show together, raised money for his charity, and every time I see Chris, every time I see his, friends and family around, like, it's been really nice, it's actually, he says hi. I mean, there's even a run this summer where the Ball Don't Stop run, hosted by Ekrem Nagra, the GOAT. Chris was there, and I was on the court, and before the game I was like, yo, Chris, I want you to give me 50 in this warm-up run in this open gym, and he actually gave me 48, which was actually kind of sick. So, like, even things like that, like, it's just been really great, and I'm personally rooting for Chris and always happy to align with him. He actually is at a comedy show right now too, which is sick too. He's raising funds for the Chris Boucher Foundation, which supports people here in Montreal, and I think Chris is just a generous guy. If you get to know him too, and I'm not gonna say like I'm his best friend or anything, I'm not, but like, having gotten to know him even just a little bit, he is he's someone who wears his heart on his sleeve, but also at the same time is like really deeply passionate about this, and I'm certainly rooting for him. And again, if we're talking about who's the most productive players in terms of in the Raptors, he would be in the rotation, but the priorities this season, we will have to see. Next question, did Ochai make any jumpers? He actually did. I think he made a mid-range jumper. I think he missed a corner 3, but like, I think it was down to the catch rather than the shot. Whatever. I think Ochai is actually doing a decent job. And I'm allowing myself to be pleasantly surprised by him this season. I'm not expecting too much because he didn't show too much when he first came over, but I know the defense plays, and if he gets the off-ball stuff, whether that's catching and shooting, whether that's cutting, whatever, that will allow him to get on the court because I know the defense for sure plays. Another question, thoughts on the Raptors going with Pirtle, Boucher, Barnes, RJ quickly as starters, Kelly, Mogbo, Grady, Bruce, and Davion as the bench with Jacoby getting spot minutes. I don't know, they also capitalize a lot of O's in this, but I don't know, but regardless, I don't think they'll start Chris. I think it's pretty clear that Grady has probably got the inside track to it, especially if he shoots the ball like this. Like, I think that, like, he'll get more of a chance at it. But at the same time, like, yeah, I mean, I think Chris should be your backup, to, I guess, Scotty at the 4. And yeah, I mean, Chris and Kelly together probably works rebounding still makes me a little shaky, I guess. But yeah, I don't know. I doubt they start Boucher though. I really do. And Mogbo, I feel like I need to see more because today I was like, woof. Rolo asks, does Grady look like he should be a starter? Does that make the most sense for the lineup? I think so. I think offensively it would be really great because Grady's the guy on the team who's best playing without the ball, at least on the wings. Maybe you would say like Jakob's a little bit better playing off the ball in terms of just rolling to the basket and stuff. But Grady's the best at sort of cutting away from the ball, finding space, catching, shooting. He's very comfortable in the corners. And I do think in the starting lineup, you already got Scotty, you already got Jakob, who does obviously distribute a little bit from the post, and you got Emmanuel, and you got RJ. Like, the fifth guy should be somebody who doesn't need the ball. And that could be Ochai for the defense, and that could be Grady for the offense. Ideally, you merge the two of them together like they do a Dragon Ball Z Fusion dance or something, but yeah, we'll see. I mean, I think for me, Grady does have the inside track. I think this team, if they're going to be successful this year, needs to be good on both ends of the floor. And I know for sure Grady's good on offense, and he has a chance to be good on defense. I think that's a higher chance of that versus like Ochai being suddenly very improved on offense. But I don't know. I think Grady probably gets the inside track. Another question. Scotty mentioned getting tons of reps with Boucher this summer at TMU and around the city. What are the chances that we see a bounce back year from Slim Duck? I would love it. Again, I would really, really love it. It's up to, I think it's up to Darko, and I think it's up to Chris. But I do think that, they're both on they're on the same page right now, which is nice. And then last question here. How come reporters never ask Masai or anyone else about the prices going up so much while the product goes down and pricing out a lot of the best fans? Actually, I think Masai actually was asked about this last year at the season-ending press conference. I forget which reporter asked about it. Masai, look, this is not his job. He's not setting the price. And I think he, gave some sort of kind of non-answer or whatever. I don't think he's responsible for this. But I do think that, again, to my point earlier, you maybe fine. Maybe the games themselves are such that, Toronto's a huge city. There's always going to be money in the city, and there's, Raptors are a scarce commodity, whatever, that people are going to want to go. And the Raptors are okay, and I guess MLSE as a whole is okay with taking in the money versus having a worse crowd. But I do think that fine, then do other things, do other sort of events that sort of engage to some degree, or even I don't know, maybe take a little bit less money, at least make one section cool, Sprite Zone vibes. I know this is not, it's not a good thing for a business to go into a state where they're not making a lot of money, but I remember back in 2011, I would get 2 tickets for $15 to go see Sacramento with Tyreek Evans, and just sit in the Sprite Zone, and that was awesome. My first ever Raptor games were like that, and yeah, I mean, obviously I was gonna be passionate about the team regardless, but still, I think those moments are pretty valuable. And the money is valuable too. I mean, whatever. But I don't know. I mean, ticket prices are really bad in terms of I would love to do maybe this for the next episode because I'm just after practice right now. But I would love to look at how much the average ticket was compared to how many wins they actually delivered that season in terms of just what's the most cost effective ticket. And Raps will definitely be bottom 5. I'll say that much from last season. So, yeah, I would love for that to change. But then again, at the same time, it's they also have platforms to resell Ticketmaster. And if people are willing to buy, then people are willing to buy. I don't know. I would certainly side on the side of the fans. But clearly that's it's not up to me or even Masai, really, to run the ticket prices. Anyway, to wrap up your 3 stars... Why am I doing 3 stars for a 20-minute practice? But okay, 3 stars for the sake of it. Let's go with first star. I'm gonna go with Kelly Olynyk. I mean, defensively, but offensively, he was actually really, really good. Second star, I'm gonna give to probably RJ. Just did a good job overall. Then third star, I'll give it to Grady for knocking down some threes. Actually, no, I'll give it to Ochai for knocking down some threes. Your Mig, your most improved guy, all right, it's brought to you by Darko this season, is your Mig tonight is who's your Mig tonight, man? Honestly, your Mig guy is me, all right? The fact that we're doing a React pod after this is crazy. So the Mig award, the first ever Mig, is your host, William Lewis. So thanks everyone for listening once again to the Hello and Welcome podcast presented by Betway. For everyone who's out there, please continue to like, comment, subscribe to the comments, to everything on YouTube, but also most importantly, like review the show too. Like we're trying to really obviously get back started. We were going like once per week in the off season when nothing was going on, but everything you love, 3 shows a week, all the rag pods, including a freaking open practice rag pod, you're going to get it here on the Hello and Welcome podcast. So please tell your friends, please rate, review, and subscribe to the show. We're trying to grow it. And also, if you haven't checked that out, the episode with Matt Devlin was really, really good. So thanks everyone for listening. And yeah, I'll be back on Sunday. So this has been the Hello and Welcome podcast presented by Betway. Peace.